That was a gun.
I'm not voting.
If we want to build our nation.
The problem with the Somalians.
Just want to experience something else than a black man.
Move on, move
Be
forward.
like a horse with blinkers on.
Honestly say, I was about to have
Corrupt
sex and then I pulled
crap,
up.
but it's nice.
I'm Dealinda Dalkami. Everyone calls me Dee. I'm 40 years old, married, 2 kids.
My name is Glenn Arendse, and I would describe myself as educator, activist, artist, and 47 years old.
Hi, I'm Tori Jenkins. I'm the founder of the Independent Theatre Movement of South Africa.
Hi, I'm Hazel. I'm a journalist at a community newspaper. I'm 34 years old, married, 2 daughters, and born and bred in Bonteheuwel, which is still my hometown. I was told that the term coloured was actually a term chosen by the coloured people to be identified as. I don't know how true it is, but somebody doing research on oral history told me this.
I doubt that.
Because apparently they wanted to make this distinction between the Dutch and whatever else, but I don't know. So you guys don't agree?
No. I mean, it has a very painful history. You know, initially, the political platform of the coloured was because it was by default, you know, as a result of the rape that had taken place, you know, when the settlers had actually moved into the Western Cape, and by virtue of the fact that there was a bloodline which was now convincingly proven to be part of the oppressor. There was a need to kind of acknowledge this group in a sense.
So it's a term you're not comfortable with. You don't. What do you describe yourself as then?
I wouldn't say I'm uncomfortable with it.
Okay.
I would say that the term itself is very problematic because when one talks about coloured, we're talking about a plethora of difference within a community that you know, that is not just sort of defined under that single word. You know?
I think in a way, yeah, I think there's an important need for us to call it change our language, but I think it's where we're pushing our minds towards. I think we're locked up and caught up in racism. If we are mulling around, are we mixed race, are we coloured, who the hell are we? That doesn't make sense to me. It's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to take us forward.
Yeah.
It's going to take us backward. Not backwards. It'll make us backward as well, you know? So, as far as I'm concerned, I think we should just agree that no matter who we're talking about, in the South African context or in the world context, we're talking about the human race. We are different, but I would want to be shown somebody that is not mixed race.
But how?
Before I pursue with any description of whether colours are mixed race or blah blah blah. For me, I want to embed. I feel this discussion needs to embed it in science and in a global, world, international context.
I don't know what the big deal is here in South Africa because abroad you have different races all the time and they get together with other races, they get married, they have kids and their offspring are all mixed race. So why is there such a big deal about it here in South Africa when it comes to coloured?
I don't think any race can claim to be pure. I don't think so. Because somewhere along the line there was somebody mixing with somebody. But, you know, exactly, who cares?
But you know what? I think if one, for instance, has not lived a life that is politicized by virtue of your pain and your struggle,
Sure.
right? Then you don't mind. Call me what you want.
Yeah.
You know, names won't break my bones type of thing that we used to sing previously.
understand.
Sticks and stones would, you know. But I'm slipping my point. But I think in the naming itself, you know, for me, essentially within the apartheid system, naming is not innocent. Naming is tainting, right? Because it places you in relation to a other in further proximity to humanness. And that for me is problematic. And I want to reclaim my humanity. Not by being a colored or mixed race necessarily, unless that is an important descriptor to make meaning with somebody in relation to race or heritage or something like that. But if heritage and those things are not important, then why the hell do I want to name myself a colored for that
so
matter?
good at this, eh?
Very, very deep.
I now understand why he's an activist.
I want to relate this story to you guys. When my husband and I got married, you know, when we planned the wedding reception and so forth, we had this idea of having an African theme, and we asked our guests to come dressed up in traditional African wear. But both sides of the family had issues with it because it's not part of our culture. So now it's always been a thing that I've been battling in my head. What is colored culture? You know, is there such a thing? Is there, you know, so in any case, we ended up saving a whole lot of money because we gave them their way and we made them pay for whatever they wanted. So
I think it highlights something that's salient for me. For instance, my own reading suggests that, you know, you had in our history, one can go back to the notion of a people that was known as the Bushman and the Khoikhoi. And when we bring culture to that, it makes more sense to me to describe a Bushman as someone, because you couldn't just tell the difference between these peoples, right? So the Bushman would be a descriptor of a culture and not necessarily a skin color or a people in terms of how they look outside. It's people that hunt, right? And the Khoikhoi was more pastoral in that sense, right? And I feel comfortable to think that somebody can choose to be Bushman if they go and join the culture that hunts, or you become a Khoikhoi if you become more sort of settled and you know, like agrarian and pastoral in that sense. So that for me makes more sense. But now if you want to know, what is there a colored culture? You know, I'm not sure whether one can claim a culture independent of a livelihood that exists. You know, if the land is key to your livelihood and your identity and your ancestral linkage and all of that, your spirituality, if you take all of that away, what the hell do you want me to show now? Let me give my land back and I'll show you that there's maybe some culture.
Why not just being a Capetonian?
I don't have a problem of being a Capetonian.
Do you
I am a
consider
Capetonian.
yourself as, when people ask you who you are,
Yeah.
what do you think of? Do you think of I'm Glenn, or I'm coloured, or I'm a Capetonian, or I'm a South African and I'm proud to be South African? What do you think of?
If they're interested, and which would be a compliment, I could go back into the heritage of how I understand my own heritage and the heritage of my family, right? Which, strangely enough, it's like all of us have got a hole in our heads. We've got a gap in memory because of the genocidal nature of the devastation that we've gone through. Layers of people had been scooped out of the equation so that you only have really old people and really young people, and the whole vibrant age that people live their lives, those people were killed off, you know. So in a way you also find that there isn't this natural flowing down of one to know. There are breakages in knowing now who's the next person in this family tree thing, you know, along those lines. But
I want to ask, if you know your family tree so well, then you're very fortunate, because it's not a lot of Capetonians or
right.
you know, that can actually do that, or colored people, if I can say the word, because of exactly what apartheid did. And classic example, once again, my grandmother had a child with her. She was the domestic worker, and she had a child with a boss, and she said she gave the name of the father of her daughter. She said, just call him Abdullah Ibrahim. You know, she probably, you know. So, but clearly,
Without thinking of the legal complications.
You know, well, I'm sure there were other Abdullahs, but you know, so.
I don't know, but if people ask me, how do you feel about being coloured? I don't mind. It's great. I love being who I am. Sure, I'm D and I'm a strong woman and I've got things that happen in my life, but I'm actually proud to also be part of a subculture of South Africans that are called coloured, because that's how I grew up, and that's how what resonates with me is my past, how I grew up, and who I am today, and I don't want to change it for the world. My roots are very important to me because it made me who I am today. So yes, I know there's a hell of a lot happening, especially now, very topical, about race and color, especially the colored people, due to media things that happened just quite recently. But I must say, part of me is like, I don't actually care what people think. This is me, I'm part of the colored race and I'm happy to be part of the colored race. But I also think a lot of people are quite ignorant about what colored people are about.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people generalize. And you know what? I don't know what I can do about that, because can you really force people to come away to your way of thinking?
Yeah, when I was
You know what I'm
at
saying?
Joburg some years ago, people didn't want to believe that I was from Cape Town because I still had all my teeth. Because apparently we lose our front teeth from all the snook we eat and all the wine we drink.
Well, there's all kinds of myths about the loss of front teeth. You know, I mean, I find in film and in theatre, you know, one often gets scripts and go for castings where it says, well, you need a coloured accent.
Oh yeah, like Cape Flats.
Coloured,
What is the
a
coloured
coloured
accent?
Cape
actor
Flats accent,
and a coloured accent. So normally a coloured accent is defined as the taxi gachis going around Main Road shouting Weinberg, Mulberry, etc. One of the things for me which is always a challenging thing, I remember picking up a friend of mine who was coming down from the States, and the first thing she said to me when she got off the plane is, Tariq, how does it feel being coloured?
Oh, that accent.
And my response was, how does it feel having the opportunity of calling me a derogatory term? Because the word coloured is derogatory in the States. So it opens up an interesting linguistic sort of curiosity. And the one thing is that the struggle between what is it being black in the general sort of concept of black consciousness and what is it to be coloured. And in terms of, and I'm sure, you know, Glenn, you know, this is something I think, you know,
He's making notes.
I want to ask you, because one of my challenges were, because, you know, my parents, I was born outside of the country. We didn't have the luxury of going to live it up in Europe or the States in exile, as it were. It was Zimbabwe. And my idea of black consciousness was that black, coloured, Indian, white, there's a very strong fundamental kind of through line around how we work as South Africans in pushing for unity and all that type of thing. But then coming within the dimensions of Cape Town and the Western Cape, where my extended family are incredibly racist.
Oh yeah.
And do not assert, in many degrees, the relationship they have with black people in this country, or do not assert the relationship they have with white people in this country. So in a sense, there is a need for a kind of liminal identification which is neither here nor there, but there is something that is distinct, you know, about this grey area. And you know, on the one hand, with the kind of comments that we made about, you know, there's too many colours in the Western Cape and all that type of thing.
Let's not go there.
These are racist statements. However, it's very, very difficult for me to defend the racism systemic within our community. In my opinion, the attrition between black and coloured in this country is sometimes harsher
No, for sure.
than the globalized sort of perspective of what South African politics are about, or what South Africa is about. It's this black and white story, but the answers lie very much in what's cooking, you know, in between.
My dream is to have people understand exactly who they are and to be able to get on with others and engage with others, being true to themselves. Because I think when we do that, we won't be so focused on race issues and things that actually causes discord.
My dream is that we would be able to see our way through human limitations to live together and agree to disagree, and to make meaning within the limitations to take us forward.
My dream is to see people dream.
I've got 2 daughters. Setha is 4 and Zachary is a year old. And I think my dream would be by the time that they are adults, that we wouldn't have to sit around the table and debate these issues we are debating tonight. That is my dream.
That's brilliant. I love that you said that. I wish I'd said that.